have been away for way too long. I am back, checking all of the streams here, making sure that I am being seen. Am I being seen? Yes. Yes. We're checking that here. So, yes, it looks like I am back on YouTube and Twitch. Live. I've missed you guys so much. You are so much fun to hang out with. Just won't go into any details, don't need to. Just it was a long sort of illness that put me under, and it just sapped a lot of my energy. And could I have streamed? Definitely during some parts of it, yeah. But yeah, just no, didn't want to like do a stream for one day and then not for other times and whatnot. So yes, all right. Enough about that. I am just happy to be here. Don't know if anybody's watching yet, but you may watch the stream later, of course. All right. So what this is, of course, is Strategic Command World War I, and this was just one of the games I have been playing. And let's see, we are playing, of course, as the Central Powers here. That it is July 21, 1917, and we're doing pretty good, actually. We now I will say, in playing this isn't. I hate these always bump into ships just moving through here. So I have restarted when I've done that. Now, when I'm sitting on a convoy line here, and blockading it and get attacked, absolutely let that play through. I let that fully play through. I recently got upgraded to advanced sub, so I believe all these are going to be upgradable, so they're all heading back to base to become advanced subs. If my voice isn't sounding so great, sorry, I'm not used to talking a whole lot here. I'm seeing if anybody's actually out there watching, please say hi. Hello, my friend. It's been a long time. Good to see you here. So there is somebody actually watching. Good. So that, and I will do at times specifically, I'll save and then sort of test out possible attacks. And the other thing is with this game, and I have been playing this on a different computer that didn't have this mod. Sometimes the interface is bad, and if I miss whatever, I will definitely go back and deal with the save there. But yeah, okay. Now, one thing with this game here is, and I still can't, tank core. Can't build tank core. Probably something I could look up in the rules. Now it says required armored warfare research. Yes, and yeah, I get that, but no, we don't want that coming up just yet. As Germany here, I got tank development level 1 already reached and working on 2. Armored warfare level 1 already reached and working on 2. So I don't know if you need multiple levels of armored warfare or just the one. But so we are holding out. We have all of Belgium, and quite honestly, I have not been really pushing to get to Paris. I definitely pushed to get all of Belgium and have a nice straight line through here. They're pushing back a little bit here. The line had been straight to here and jogged down along like this. No, they have pushed in here. Is because commitments elsewhere have pushed me to other, send reinforcements to other fronts. So we are holding out here in Italy. They pushed into Austria a bit, but very weakly, and I'm working on pushing them back. We have not only taken Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, but also Greece. We have kept so far Romania out of the war, which is a good thing. Turkey, there's been for quite a long time this deep bulge of Russians into Turkey that we've been able to hold off. The British have pushed up and basically taken a good chunk of Iraq, including Baghdad, and we're holding down here along the Sinai, or just on the edge of the Sinai. So we have done that. And on Russia, we have mostly been trying to bleed them white, or maybe bleed them red. We'll see about that. Instead of trying to push in. So we are very much holding there. Got a bunch of ships out here in the Baltic, and I was like, I saw earlier, the subs are coming home to get upgraded, I guess, not reinforced, but upgraded. All right. Okay, so hello, Tim. How you doing? You consider playing a scenario in the DLC that's called The Big Game. It starts in 1913. It's a worldwide campaign. Yeah, it's crossed my mind. Okay. I might have a bit more desire to play it on if on two accounts than this. This is just the 1914 start with at war with Germany, or Germany going at war with Russia and France and whatnot. If it was a bit more of a in-depth strategic game like a good version of Hearts of Iron or something like that, that might intrigue me. But also there's I feel I'm very knowledgeable about World War II. I know there's a lot more things I don't know than I do. Don't think I'm a know-it-all or have everything down. But I feel I'm very good at understanding World War II. I'm not with World War I. Various things like production, politics. I do sort of know that the monarchy in Romania was basically German renta monarchs, so that they were rather in favor of Germany, but the populace is rather in favor of France. So it's a divided nation, and all the various strains and stresses. I don't think the Romanian people wanted to go down in flames if Germany or the Central Powers are looking strong and kicking everybody's butt. So, I don't think, say I don't know. I'm just using this as an example. But I do think that they are emotionally on France's side, and strategically the not just the guy on the street, but the elites in Romania, would like to build to greater Romania, so they have strategic interests, either against Bulgaria or very much against possibly both Russia and Austria, but you can't maybe go to war with both of them. And so you're looking at strategic goals that if it looks good, they want to get into it. If it looks bad, they don't want to get into it, into the war. And I don't really know, I know that little bit, but however well I know that little bit. So the politics leading up to it. And also, I will say about World War I, you definitely, you have, I fully blame World War I on the Serbs. Serbs are the bad guys. I know they were on the winning side, but they're the bad guys. They assassinated the Archduke, and it's sort of like killing a vice president or a deputy prime minister or something like that. It's a pretty grievous attack. So and there is a bit of lag between that and the guns of August coming out and the big fighting starts. But I don't think, and maybe I just don't know it well, I don't think World War I is like World War II, in which there were inevitable driving factors, because Hitler's pushing for a war. Okay. Hitler is pushing for a war. He wants a war. The Nazis want a war. A lot of the Germans want. Well, Germans are afraid of another World War I, for sure. But they are sort of pushing to get their territory back. But definitely Hitler wants a war. Now, Hitler wants multiple wars, not one big war. He wants a war with Czechoslovakia, a war with Poland, and then build up in a war with France and maybe Britain, but just them contained. And then maybe, a war with the Soviet Union once the flanks are. So he's pushing for the war. And of course, the Japanese, and we can look at their government, and it's multiple sort of governments all sort of running at once. Pushing into China. And that's their goal, their drive for years before, pushing first. They're building an empire. Even before, World War I, they're pushing into Korea against, the Russo-Japanese War and whatnot. So World War II is definitely have actors that are driving towards a war. But I don't see World War I breaking out over fights in the colonies. If France and Russia are, and I know they were allied in World War I, but or our ships are clashing somehow out in the Pacific somewhere, I don't necessarily see that breaking into a world war. It might, it could, but I don't see that. So I don't see the strategic drive, and I could just be missing things, of the powers. So 1913 to me seems like a, hey, Exergen, and Arno. So I just don't see the where the build-up, if too much foreknowledge of the player, shall we say, is happening, in my opinion. Where you do have it for World War II. I think, and I've come around to the conclusion that Chamberlain is very misunderstood. And I think he's misunderstood, in dealing with World War II. Misunderstood the moment he holds up that piece of paper, and if not before, and says, peace in our time. He didn't say peace for our time. He said peace in our time. Basically, and I could finish the sentence, peace in our time to prepare for war. Prepare Britain. And he definitely, not as much as Churchill would have, and definitely not as much as the war breaks out, but he definitely, and I will get to all the chats here, Arno and Exergen and everybody, but he definitely is doing as much as he politically thinks he can to prepare Britain for the coming war with Germany. So he's already realizing that there's going to be a war with Germany, and is preparing Britain in 38 there with the after the Munich conference. It was to give them breathing space to get prepared. France, I just don't know enough about. I don't think their government was organized enough really to see them. There are some modernizations going on, definitely with some of their tanks prior to the breakout to the war, but it's sporadic. But that's maybe just more France is being France and divided. The Soviet Union, they definitely have their plans, progress, developments in military and industrial, as well as territorial expansion ideas, even prior to Germany, doing the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with them. So we see them already pushing. We see, like I say, Germany and Japan pushing. So to me, a game that starts, say, in 36, and I think that's sort of a good key year to start a prequel starting World War II game, we already see the actors with a certain foreknowledge of there's a coming war. France, obviously is doing things like building the Maginot Line. The Czechs build their own line, though it gets outflanked, and it's never as good as the Maginot, but it's still a defensive line. It would have been good. It would have been somewhat useful. Wouldn't have stopped everything or 100% defended the nation. But they were all preparing for this war that they realized was coming. I don't get that sense. I get very much Germany and France are they're thinking about, is there going to be a Franco-Prussian War round 2? Because and here a few years ago, and more than 10, I realized something that being an American, I did not see or understand. Sort of an American blindness. I thought militaries, navies, air forces, armies, of course, trained up and prepared to fight, wars, battles, whatever. And it was just sort of a thing you do. Okay. And yeah, obviously I knew, Maginot Line, Siegfried Line. Yeah, they definitely prepared to defend their own country. Obviously. But I did not get just how much, and this is some years ago, how much these nations train in the specific as opposed to the abstract. Meaning they were training to hold and also trying to organize their forces, both in unit size and types and equipment and all that kind of stuff, to hold specific military goals. Because in America, our army doesn't train to defend the United States. It just doesn't. We don't see it here, but there's no training to move units to the Canadian border. Like they know the routes. Okay, this battalion's going to go move to that and here, and they're going to, they don't train, and they don't train or practice to defend the United States. They don't to defend the, I know Trump is putting military units as auxiliaries on borders and things like that, but they don't train to defend, the United States from attack. Our Navy basically doesn't train to defend, defend New York Harbor or the Chesapeake Bay or whatever. We train in the abstract because we think we're going to go fight out in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific for our navies, or if we're going to fight a war, we're going to send our armies overseas. So we train in the abstract to make units function and equipped and all that tactics and all that stuff. But it's not like, do we defend New York City or something? We just don't have that mindset in America. So it's very much in the abstract that we train for. And but where places like Europe, it's look for their specific needs. And yeah, that's going on. Like I'm, back to the Franco-Prussian War. Yeah, Germany is building plans for it, but Germany isn't building plans for a world war. It's thinking, much more locally. Now let's get back to some of the chats here. And yes, I'm going to say hello again to Exergen. I am doing much, much better. I was very, very sick, but I'm doing good. And hello, Arno. Okay, not since Crimea, and you have 3 or 4 big empires competing for resources, while the British are dominant for a while. Okay, yes. And then Exurgence talking about, Britain and such. Most of these wars that have happened, I mean, we can take the Franco-Prussian War, obviously happens in the middle of Europe. But a lot of these imperial wars are not fought directly, are sometimes competed against what are seen as maybe even strategical allies overall for critical areas. I don't want to overplay. Looking back at it, we could see the Franco or the Anglo-Franco alliance as something that is presumed, but you still have both of those navies building against each other, building to fight each other. You have Britain messing with French politics, trying to install royalists after defeating Napoleon and supporting them. You have temporary alliances between the British and the French for the Mexico adventure. Or the British, they just wanted their money, so they went and occupied the ports and tried to tax the Mexicans to get their money that they were owed. And they left once they realized the French were trying to take over Mexico, because it wasn't in Britain's plans to take over Mexico. They weren't there to conquer it. They were just there to get their money out of it. And so, it's only once Germany unifies and becomes a massive central weight in Europe do the British start going, because Britain likes a divide and rule. Britain wants a Prussia, an Austria, a France, a Spain, maybe even as these nations are getting bigger, and Italy, to all sort of be their own, and a Russia sitting off to the side, be their own thing, and just sort of keep any one group from dominating Europe. So they're not. Now, we do see coming, definitely with World War I and then World War II, a Anglo-Franco alliance that still holds to this day, and that kind of thing. So I see a lot of the colonial stuff just being colonial stuff for them, and not a world war. And Arno again over on YouTube. Yes, I'm live both on YouTube. I suppose others just felt the British were at their weakest for 100+ years. Well, the British, I don't know. Not exactly sure how to take that. Exertion. Yes, World War II is obvious, giving history it was going to happen. Well, yeah, giving history, but also giving the plans of people going on. It was basically a bit of a surprise. Okay. But World War I had been a long time, much like we are now. Lots of untested tech, no immediate history of the effects of large-scale wars. Very few people in Europe were paying attention to the Russo-Japanese War. The Russians definitely paid attention to it, and the Russians had, at least for their basic standing army, the highest rate of machine guns to infantrymen of any of the powers at the start of World War I. You might always be thinking of Russia as a second class, at least for their scale of their empire versus their scale of industry, second class industry. But they had more machine guns per man than anybody else. Now, they overvalued their machine guns in the sense of, money, and sort of held them back a little too much at the start of the war so that the Germans were able to push on them. But they were days. Especially lots of field, dude, thinking, nope, they don't. Not even the US and UK go and train other nations. No. Right. UK is the same, as we mainly train in Arctic and other jungles. Yes, now, that is a case that the UK, for its army, and because navies are a bit more, mobile, is that Britain's long history, it doesn't really plan to, in the modern day sense, did long ago, but in the sort of post 18th century sense, really plan on defending Britain with soldiers in Britain. Soldiers, weren't really there for defending from foreign invasion. Soldiers in Britain, what the population always fears, are in Britain are mainly there to suppress the British populace. And that's what they're there for. And if you think I'm mistaken, we can look at the Jacobite risings throughout the 18th century. We can look at also the 18th and 19th century suppression of the Irish. We can see the soldiers, because the British did not have a huge police state, unlike now. Back in the 19th century, soldiers were used to maintain peace and stability with, industrialization and the forgetting the name of it. I don't know if it's because I was sick or whatever. The anti-machine people. Boy, it'll come to me. I join and I get to hear about the British repressing now. That is good. But they were doing that in the 19th century. I'm just blanking on it probably. The people that wanted to break all the industrial machines that were happening. So the British Army was that, and to try to maintain a nucleus of trained officers, NCOs, and a small corps of troops that would ramp up when needed, either for colonial expeditions or for a big war that broke out, where its navy was its defense of its homeland. And the British Navy, I don't know about today so much, just because there's not much of it left. But throughout the 20th century, very much trained to defend the British Islands, because, they put the big fleet up at Scapa Flow, ready to come out against any sort of major invasion. And, so it was away from most aerial attacks, and it was because you don't want to Pearl Harbor, of course. And, ready to come down and defend the Channel, or other, we can see earlier on in World War I, ready to come out and engage the German High Seas Fleet, which they did at the Jutland Battle. So yeah, there was very much those kind of strategic thinkings that were going on. Well, I don't know, Exergen, about what's going on in Britain. I definitely understand that. I know we're supposed to be playing here this game, and we will very shortly. But I'm saying hi and getting back with friends here. Ari and I are looking through a camera lens. And this is something that I learned way, way back, that the news media, if you want to be generous to the news media, they're just looking for stories. I'm not. On the other side is because they would often do this, the opposite. They had a political bias to the left, so that if there were 40 people on the left to come up and protest something, they would make sure the camera shot just included the 40 people, so that it looks like it might be a bigger crowd, but it's a full shot of the 40 people, and that they're protesting, whatever it is. If it was the right, they would, and if there was 40 people protesting, they'd pull back and show that the park is mostly empty. It's just these 40 people standing in a group in the center. Well, so on the left, they would, make it look as big as they could. So there was definitely this overall left bias by the media on protests. But the whole point is that even with the BLM riots, you're pointing the cameras at the burning buildings. You're not swinging around behind it to see that the 7-Eleven over there is open for business, you know, on the other side of the street at times. So, you know, it's the camera lens focus. And I will readily say that about Britain. But from everything I know, and Exergen knows I have lived in Britain, now that was more than 20 years ago, so I'm not saying that the mood, I'm used to the current mood of Britain. No, I'm just the idea of knowing Britain well enough, generally speaking. And also knowing the Anglo-Saxon culture, because I am part of the Anglo-Saxon culture. Just like the Lowland Scots are part of the Anglo-Saxon culture, and the Australians are part of the Anglo-Saxon culture. I am definitely, an American version, as Canadians or whatever, because we're all part of the Anglo-Saxon culture. And there are, Cockneys, and there are rural folk in Britain that are, part of the Anglo-Saxon culture and are, culturally different. Maybe not, in various degrees and levels, if you know what I mean. So don't, sure, and even a Chinese American who's very Americanized is part of it. Now he's also part of Chinese culture too, but so I am very much part of the Anglo-Saxon culture. Again, not saying I'm English or I'm Scottish or I'm whatever, but and it's not just because I've lived there, but it is part of our the Irish. The modern Irish. And I'm not talking about the Scots Irish, but the regular Irish. They're an Anglo-Celtic culture. They are a mix of Anglo and maybe you were referring to the old Anglo-Irish, the English that a lot of them even before Protestantism arrives have immigrated to Ireland, or the later Ulster Scots and the other Ulsterman types. But even the modern day Celt in Ireland is an Anglo-Celtic person, because even though they might speak Gaelic, they all speak English. So, and it's not just learning it in some, sitting in a school in Russia and learning how to speak English. No, they grew up with it. And watched the same TV shows that the Americans watched and that the English watched and whatever else, and that kind of thing. So this gives me understandings of Britain much better than I can understand Germany or Russia or definitely someplace like China. So as a somewhat outside observer, but with, I would say, expert knowledge, knowing that, and I did not know this until a few years ago, that you can have a minority person, minority party, not racial, a minority party person win an election. I always presumed that for Parliament you had to get 50% of the votes, and if there wasn't a clear winner, they would do a runoff. That's how it is in America. So you have right now a prime minister in Britain whose members in Parliament, most of them, there's a few strong labor areas, I'm sure, but most of the areas they did not get a majority of the votes. And so you have a minority, so in seats of Parliament, they may be majority, but as voting totals for Britain, they are a minority government. And you have significant repression, at least it seems to me. People are going to jail. Okay. There are more people going to jail for speech issues in Britain than there are in Russia right now, as far as my understanding. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But so there are people for speaking out, for comedians going to jail in Britain than there are in Russia. Now, that could just partially be Russians know to keep their mouths shut because it's Russia and they know they could go to jail. But there are definitely more going on. Plus, America's culture is spreading everywhere, which is also, yes, exactly. Not rude. We don't have the prison places. Okay. What you mean is you're getting fined. Well, you're getting arrested. Oh no, I'm not saying they're all. Some of them are in jails and prisons or whatever. Oh, but I'm not saying that they are all uh, sitting in prison or in prison camps. No, you're absolutely right, surgeon. Um, but you wouldn't be arrested, ticketed, or fined in America. You just wouldn't be. Um, so yeah, so we see that. I think I think there's going to be a correction coming in Britain. I don't know if it's going to be a, doing air quotes here, civil war or anything like that, and definitely not, more of a fourth or fifth generational warfare. And I need to get a little cheat sheet to be able to quickly read out how those are different than kinetic warfare. Airstrikes and artillery bombardments and snipers on roofs. Well, maybe a few snipers on roofs, but so hey, repeat 44. Yes, no, I'm not dead. Just I said earlier had serious health issues, so I am back, and don't plan on stream tomorrow. Just this sort of test stream, get back, but probably next weekend. Even the police are complaining about they can't keep up with it. Yeah, and so I think things are coming to a head in Britain, as there are in many other places in Europe, in the Western world. So, and it's going to look different in every country. I think we're seeing a rightward shift in Spain, an election politics, and all that stuff is going on. But I will grant Exergen great test. Well, thank you, Arno. I started last night, everyone, looking, okay, how do I stream? Okay, got OBS. Is it set up? And I use Restream to stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time. And is that, without actually starting to stream up, getting all that set up. So I was getting all that set up. And trying to remember how to do all of this. I am recovering. Yes, I am very much recovering. Okay, so let's get back and play the game, actually. I do love this game. I think, in a vague way online and interacting a few times and whatnot. I know Bill and some of the other developers of this game. I count them as, online friends. But I will be critical of their game. And full disclosure, though I haven't been streaming also, though probably next month I'm going to wait to go back to start streaming on for Slitherine. I do as a contract worker, meaning they pay me, but I'm not an actual employee for Slitherine, Matrix, the publishers of these games. So I could have, definitely in talking about the games can have a bias. But even there, I will say what I like and don't like about the stream. Now, I will also say they're very smart, and they actually have a spreadsheet out how much for a list of games that they think that they might have a stream. Not every single game in their catalog, but of the games that they have us like a 1 to 5, I think it is, questionnaire of how well do we think we know the game, and how much do we like the game. And so if you put like a 1-star, they don't have us stream the game. And I will say their sort of nuclear war joke game or whatever simulator, I put that as I don't know it, I don't stream it, I don't want to play it. And so I definitely not so they don't sign me up to play that game. And that's basically a refusal there for me, for them. I just don't play it. Some of the other games, don't have a lot of interest, don't have a lot of knowledge, but quite willing to play the game. And other games like Strategic Command, I love, and not the greatest expert on the games, but very knowledgeable. So they're smart in that they are, putting us, the streamers, to where they are. And don't play more Shadow Empire. Actually, I have a while ago, sort of first of this year for myself, played some Shadow Empire. mostly it's gone to other streamers, and I like the game. I think it's a good game. It's a if you're not familiar with it, it's a humans on other planets post-apocalyptic type event, and the humans on that planet are trying to rebuild their civilization game. So yeah, it's just time and number of games. And hello, Dr. Nisfuri, if I get it right, and thank you for the welcome back. Okay, so here we have done some stuff, so so we can't upgrade. This is and actually I haven't played this in a week. I'm back from the middle of this game. I think we're near the end of the turn, except for we have a Ottoman unit here. Detachment. So it's a small detachment. These are good for the Ottoman Empire, because we can see here we have 3 detachments sort of holding off Lawrence and his crowd out in the desert. We're still holding Medina and the other sort of cities linking it. So they're good for these sort of spread out outpost type things. We are containing the British here, again with a lot of detachments and a few corps. Russia. We're going to actually cancel. We can move you. Yeah, let's get you all the way to there. And I think we will put you right there, getting ready to go down and deal with the British. Okay, Exurgent. No, this is, let's call it, I'm back. We're getting back hanging out with friends. So, very good talking with you. And that's so. Here we are just trying to hold the line as well. We've moved down a few Bulgarian units because they weren't needed in other places. Mostly now, okay, we have a German detachment down here which is coming to help hold these territories, because if you don't hold Belgrade or some of these cities, they will revolt and you'll get a partisan unit. So, but we are trying to move out larger forces, keep some units in ports. Well, we got him to the railhead, so we can, and a connected railhead, so we can, I think, against Russia. I think we're okay right now against. I think we're going to push out here. Okay, against the. Well, these are the Bulgarian artillery. Okay, I don't know how. I did move a few because I needed units. I could redeploy them for the Bulgarians, but I don't know how much. I want to move, unless I'm going to move a. Okay, yeah, that's what we need to do. Well, for right now, we're just going to move it conventionally. We're going to get somewhat ready here for potential war with Romania. And showing that, we all know Romania, maybe we don't all know, but Romania joins the Allies. I have Germany and Austria trying to influence them, but they don't seem to want to drop below 20% support for Russia there, or the Entente, or however you want to say that. But we are keeping them neutral, so that is a good thing. We're also keeping the Netherlands somewhat a little bit pro us, but neutral, that trade with Germany. And Germany is also keeping Norway friendly. Not that we're going to try to get Norway in, but keep it friendly for trade reasons. Okay, Salonika, that's a detachment. That is a core. We have a core down here. We've got another core here. I want to got a detachment out there. Just I think I have some detachments coming, which is, I don't like the idea of purchase units. Train units or equip units or something would have been better. Okay, so we don't have a lot. Don't have a lot of any spare. These Bulgarian units could be switched out. Okay, so that is a detachment. I'm going to keep a core down here in Athens, just to have a significant local force if it needs some muscle more than a core, or I mean more than just a detachment. Okay, so here. You don't really ever want to strategically redeploy somebody right to the edge of the enemy. You always want to put them preferably behind your lines. They'll come out much better in this game. Yeah, I think we are going to continue to try to exploit into Ukraine. And what does Ari say? Bulgarians, European Turks are now fighting in the deserts of Iraq against Western imperialists. The British can't believe it. I don't know why Bulgarians are European Turks. I don't know. It seems sort of odd to me. Okay, now or because we are more and more forces here. Right. Okay, now reinforce our subs there, and these guys are going to come out straight down to here, and these guys are going to come out here. Try to sink Italian supplies going to, and we also have these guys out here. Sink Italian supplies going to North Africa, and British supplies going to or from Egypt. Let's get the units will be somewhat so. Well, let's see about. These are my Bulgarian Air Force, which are basically German. So these guys are sitting here supporting this detachment in case they're, and there are scripted and or whatnot. Naval invasions against Gallipoli. So you definitely want to hold Gallipoli and this island, or you get bad things happen. All right. Okay. So let's look at Germany. We can expand there. We've totally built out all we can build out currently with the Bulgarian army. We have 800 MPP. Looking here, here's our research. I guess infantry warfare we'll put in 100 because we have a lot to infantry warfare. Now back to purchase. And you definitely with MPP need to, we can do diplomacy, you can do research like we were just seeing here, but the two big things are, though don't let, I definitely played the game that I played before. I very downplayed research, and I built out the Austrian and German armies and then got crushed by higher quality everybody else because they had put in research. So even though my army size was good, one thing I hate about this interface in this game is when I set something like this and I go purchase, it automatically undoes it the next time. So if I wanted, I got to go do this every time. I wish it would stay set where I set it. But in fact, I think I'm going to go with another cavalry. So keep that in mind. Now, because Austria is doing so well, we've maxed out their ground army size, just a few units, and leaving lots more MPP, basically. And Austria. Nice. And now, see, this game is set up. Germany supplies Austria. I want to supply Germany, and well, we can put we can supply the Ottomans. Okay, so yeah. Hey, Martin, good to see you. I'm doing much better than when I was sick. That's good, definitely. And I didn't see you up there first. And is the Russian Revolution part of this game? Yes, it can be, but I don't know. It needs to be triggered, and I don't know the conditions to trigger it. Whether it's just calendar triggers, or whether it's national morale, or holding certain objective points. I don't know. There are events in this game, so yes, it is definitely this is a handy little tool to go over and quickly do reinforcements if you just want to not have to pay close attention. And you can see where we're eating down my MPP with this, so I think we won't do too much more of that. Let's check the Austrians out, though. They have plenty of MPP. I normally don't go to 11 unless it's a rear unit because it's more expensive than standard size reinforcements. And it's easily lost. Okay, garrison units I'm not worried about. And Bulgarian reinforcement just come off the German MPP, so I somewhat worried about that. Okay, we want to make sure that units facing Russian forces are as strong as they can be. So let's give, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but oh well. Bad staff work, maybe. We'll blame it on. Let's give the Entente its turn. Norway campaign, yes. They're sinking some trade coming down from Norway to Germany. Top naval blockade, North Sea, yes. Scientists report progress in fighter development for Germany from 86 to 100%. So now we have level 2 fighters. So we'll need to upgrade them. Austria-Hungary develops tank level development 1. Austria-Hungary develops long-range aircraft level 1. Okay, so you can see the British have, presumably the British could be the French, have choked off our MPP coming from Norway, and the Russians have actually, and I should probably start dealing with the Russians, have gotten over half of our MPP from Sweden coming down. So as I was starting to say earlier, I think the type of game this is lends itself much better to World War I than World War II, the way it's developed. I just think it does its best. Now, I think the best is sort of the daily or near daily scenarios, like the big push, or the Schlieffen Plan game. Yes, boom. Okay, we hurt them bad with our mines. The Schlieffen Plan, looking at, I don't know, I forget whether it's daily or every other day or whatever, turns, and down at more divisional scale stuff, invading just the Western Front. I think that is the best with these things. For their Strategic Command American Civil War. The thing it does not do well is, for the American Civil War, in my opinion, is the way that the war was fought. If you've read much about the war, you often see a fair dispersal of units, especially if you can look at something like the, for the Confederacy, the Army of Northern Virginia, or whatever you want to call it, the sort of northeast frontier there between Virginia and, Maryland and whatnot, going north. And it's been some years since I've really read into some of the stuff, but you'll see things like Jackson moving his corps rapidly to support Lee and whatnot, so that they're, out of the Shenandoah, so that they would be sort of different chips. But they don't do well the big battles, the idea of the Antietam's or the Gettysburg, in which, to some degree, you would have doom stacks coming after each other and figuring it out as one battle, one turn, not necessarily, at least in most cases, destroying the enemy army, but driving the enemy army. We're going to lose that unit. Yep. They are pushing us back here a bit. And partially is because I have been using, or when I've been getting casualties, I've been putting them on other fronts because I've been too complacent on this front, quite honestly. So, thanks, Jemnuska. How you doing? But as we can see here with these cores, and as they're pushing me back pretty hard. We can see the idea that, sure, there are concentrated battles along the front lines, at Wipers or other places. But they're still having huge amounts of their army just, spread out along the front lines. It isn't like all the army's concentrated to like one hex here and, go for broke and battle that out. So you're seeing a slightly different kind of thing. So for the scale of this type of game, I think World War I works best. What aided Lee in the East was that he was facing generals like McClellan and Lincoln, pushing his generals to do things sort of whiplash from him. Oh, there is so much detail in the American Civil War on what's going on. I've read some biographies, I've read some books on the American Civil War, but a lot of it's been many years ago. It's so much. So much is going on. Now, I know a lot of you've heard this, but hey, there may be some new people or it's been so long. I divide wars into two categories. Wars of attrition and wars of maneuver and decision, okay? Wars of attrition, it's the easiest one to explain, you all get it, is sort of like what I've been fighting along here for quite some time, and I've got to refocus on it, is killing more of your enemy. You can see a lot of these forces I pushed into, German forces I pushed in to deal with this, or deal with the Austrians here, or help them out. It should be up on the Western Front. He's killing more of the enemy than they're killing of you in an effective and efficient way. Pope Benedict XV issues a 7-point plan calling for peace. And so that's one more. The other is maneuver and decision. You maneuver around, and whether the maneuvers or, Britain lost 17, and Italy lost 13 MPP from submarine cistern. And I like to save this just at the start of the turn, because I do misclick and whatnot. And it creates and whether there's a battle or not, because sometimes you just maneuver enough that the enemy recognizes that they've lost, and so there's a decision made. And a good example of a maneuver and decision war, not just a battle. You can have a maneuver and decision battle within an attritional war. Many of those such things in the American Civil War. Is the Battle of France, is, Fall Gelb, Germany's invasion. Germany, France basically had equal to Germany in modern aircraft. Belgian Air Force was basically nothing in the modern sense. Plus, you had the RAF. So you had attritional-wise more aircraft for Britain or for the Allies, and I don't know French production or British production right at that moment, but probably more aircraft production in the Western Allies than you did in Germany, before the fall of France. Now, after the fall of France, Britain's standing basically alone. But before that, so you have higher aircraft production. So an attritional warfare between those two sides, you presume at some point, tactics and whatnot would level out. And, not that there wouldn't be advantages or disadvantages, there always is per side, but you would just, how many airplanes are you shooting down per day versus yours are being shot down, and you're sort of making the decision. Well, Germany was able to concentrate its air force, sometimes all in one place, but other times just around where it was needed. And the French were putting up aircraft units, not always squadrons, but whatever you want to call it, smaller subunits in France, putting up around, patrolling the areas looking for enemy aircraft. Are there aircraft, are there German aircraft flying around here? Are there German aircraft flying? They're wandering around looking for the enemy aircraft at times. And so, at the point of contact, the Germans were often much superior. So that's a maneuver and decision. Well, at times in the American Civil War, especially we can look at the Battle of Manassas and that whole campaign, Lincoln's 90-day army is about ready to expire, and he wants to have a decision by marching into Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, and, getting the war over with by just defeating the southern states. And I think they're very much, although there are a lot of Confederate veterans of the Mexican-American War, and that's who like Lee and Stonewall Jackson and others are. Lots of that veterans of that war, as well as graduates from West Point, which is a very, very small academy at the time, are in the South because they were sort of nominated by certain numbers from each state, so there would obviously be coming up from the South too. There isn't a Southern professional army. The state militias really aren't a professional army in the sense of they might all go out, might, not necessarily do, but might go out the state militias and train and be able to shoot their muskets well and march around well. They might do that. Sometimes they're just sort of social clubs. But they might be able to do that. But that doesn't mean they do logistics, and I could just leave it at the word logistics, but other sort of large organized movements and whatnot that the Northern Army has, because it basically, the North inherits most of the Federal Army. It's just sort of the defection of mostly Confederate officers, maybe some other Confederate, Southern individual sergeants and privates. And so the South is building an army. And so there's great presumption ability to think that, oh, well, hey, we can just come in with our much more modern, professionally trained army, as opposed to these state militias, and push to Richmond and show that you can't stand up against the Federal Army, and that'll just collapse the Confederacy and it'll end it. That obviously doesn't happen. And then you see various times that particularly Lee is trying to have a maneuver and decision to end the Civil War. And the ending of the Civil War could mean capturing Washington. Had they done that right after Manassas, that's a big what if. But the South is never going to conquer the North. But the South can make conquering the South bloody enough at the right time to politically end support for the North, fighting the South in there. So if you destroy enough of a Union army, you get rid of enough of a whatever. If the North isn't defending their homes, the soldiers from Massachusetts or Boston aren't trying to defend Massachusetts or Boston, the state or the big city there. They're off, fighting in somebody else's state. Where the Confederates are fighting to defend their home. So, how many Massachusetts people want to die for Alabama? Conquering Alabama. If it's not too much, yeah, they want to preserve the Union as their primary, and secondary, let's end slavery. But so you look at it that way. So the American Civil War is an attritional war, and ultimately the Confederacy is doomed. It just is. There's no way around that. Hello, the new IKB. It's been a long while. Good to see you back. And hey, Kronos, good to see you too. You're in Maritima? Or I'm Maritima. Kronos. Oh, on the other one. Okay. So now we've been pushed back. So this guy here is standing all on his own, and he's not happy about that. So what we need to do here is make sure the second line is entrenched, which it largely wasn't. It was the second line. We're going to move to there. These guys are going to come up here and entrench. Move the... You most always want to have 3 sides to your entrenchment, because if you just are doing 2 that are like along the front line, well, what happens if they take this hex and then or kill the unit there and then move a fresh unit in there and then attack that from the flank, from the unentrenched flank? And 3 is the is the maximum number of sides. For entrenchments, they do have fortifications that are all the way around. Okay, I think we will move you up to there. Reinforce you. No. We can check here. I'm not up mobilitating everybody. But I'm making sure that they are. You see that they have Stahlhelms instead of the Pickelhubes. So these are fairly well upgraded forces. I could attack on some of these, maybe favorably, but not so much. So we are, they're all entrenched. You are not. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to swap you out. You're going to entrench. And you're going to reinforce because you were the slightly weaker. So we hold this line and good there. I just want to reinforce. Okay, so we have a weak line holding, quite honestly, here. Can we... Yes, this guy is basically done here. Let's see what's under... Okay, I think I might be able to strategically redeploy him, so let's see if I can kill this unit. Here with you. Not quite. That was an attack with just a detachment here. Up like that. You over here like this. Kill that. These Italians got way too deep. You can come up here and take that out. Okay, so yes, we can strategically redeploy him, even though he's only at 7 strength. But sitting back, let's see it here. I want to shift some other forces and move them in. Let's move them up to here. And so a lot of these German forces that are here should have been up on the Maginot, well, up on the Western Front. We have three artillery strikes there, but he's the one that has... No, he hasn't done anything. Okay. This guy's got to go. Let's do... Well, yeah. Do 1 artillery barrage to weaken the hell out of them. Okay, so he's shattered now. We can reinforce that. Hey, Turinlow, how you doing? I'm back. Hey, Beam Slam. Yes, I am back. I am doing well. I have missed you guys greatly. Okay, now here. You got that unit there and that unit there, and those Italians into the north. Okay, it would probably be better if I can push into here and cut off any Italians to the north from supplies. So we have 2 artillery barrages here. We have a very weak fighter unit that we can afford to reinforce. So we're going to reinforce it instead of use it and have it used up. We have a moderately weak recon bombers. Let's just do that. We'll do 1 artillery barrage. Get back. They have yet to be upgraded, so I'm thinking if I can successfully take this out, we're going to swap these 2. That'll do that, and this will in effect have not moved, so I can reinforce this turn. instead of reinforce, because you can reinforce up on the front line, but oh, okay. Now the only thing we're not. Oh, it's Alpen. Okay, I was seeing this as more of. Oh no, it's these guys here. I was thinking. These guys. There's little pickle hoops. Okay. Yeah, that's. Yeah. So we got these Marines, which are a smaller unit. Just we built them because everything was built out. Not allowed to have more. I just march across the mountains. Get pressure from the north here. Close this area up, push into Italy. Okay, so there we're pushing there. Now, we've got Riga. We can see Warsaw here is very well defended, and the Russian army has upgraded somewhat. So, I don't think it's a terribly good idea to push into there. We're not really set to try to push into Brest-Litovsk and cut them off yet. At the start of this game, I very much set both the German and the Austrian fronts to defend all of their like Tilsit and some of these other Austrian cities along the border, because if you lose some of these, you lose oil for the Axis. You also lose a strategic effect of food for Austria. So holding on to these were very important, very much of an attritional war that was defensive while pushing down into Serbia. So we did it that way. Now, and I moved a lot more. Also, this was also the other big push, is to get up into here. So we have 6 shells, so lots of shells. We have our fighters and we have our reconnaissance bombers. So we are going to fly over there, bomb, and which will also spot these other units. So when we move into there, it won't be bumping into unknown units. You just immediately get so. Pretty good. They've now faced a massive bombardment, and they retreated because they were cavalry and had that movement factors. Now, 3 action points. We have 4. So this will be okay, I hope. And instead of attacking, which that would be somewhat useful, we are going to come up here and we're going to entrench. We're doing sort of passive, aggressive advances. That would take all 4, so we can't entrench if we go there. But we spot that. I think we're going to use you to come up here and entrench. Now, okay, so might as well entrench. And come out there. You walk back a bit, you come up to support if they do a counterattack, or getting ready for your advancement. Got to think here. This just is not favorable. And I've played this game very much as we were talking, and some people were mentioning tactics changing between shall we say, Napoleonic warfare and World War I. Beginning of World War I, a lot of Napoleonic type officers would recognize the tactics that were being used. If you've read like Rommel's infantry attacks and others, they're moving through Belgium. And this is one, I digress and jump around, and everyone who hopefully knows me likes that. Well, some people, I do get comments that don't like that. I understand. Again, and I know most of you know because we're good old friends coming back, but just in case somebody's new, I collect firearms, and I've got a bunch of firearms. And for many years, oh, hey, this Mauser rifle has iron sights out to 1,200 meters or 1,700 meters. That's no good. You can't hit anything. They were just wishful thinking. It's just a waste, blah, blah, blah. In real combat, it's often less than 100 meters. And even if you take this sort of, World War I combat, it's 300 meters or less. You're not going to hit anybody. These are just, fantasy items on these guns. They weren't. Because they were designed with the idea of you and 699 of your friends, just saying 700 people, lining up shoulder to shoulder, maybe in multiple ranks, marching out into the field, and yes, quite possibly by World War I, when getting ready to engage the enemy, laying down, not necessarily standing up, but depending on that, deciding to go shoot at 700 enemy that are all doing the same type of thing. So you would have somebody, officer type, that would try to determine the range and then tell the soldiers what range to set their rifles at. And then they would volley fire at the other guys out there. And not necessarily at 1,600 meters or some super great range, but 800, 1,000 meters. Maybe further if they're sitting up on a ridge, or you're up on a ridge and you can see a large valley, and you got that kind of thing. And the bullets could perform that well out there. And you're firing at the other enemy, and you're not trying to kill, Fritz over there. You're on your opposite side. You're just trying to shoot at that large group. And sure, you'd like to kill some of the guys and wound some of the enemy, and you very well might do that. But you're trying to win a morale battle, that they're taking casualties, and get them to fall back, get them to retreat, get them to do whatever. And it works. It does. It's volley fire against formations was a thing, absolutely. And at the beginning of the war, you still have that. You still even have it at the end of the war, too, to some degree, but not so much on the Western Front. So they're volleying at each other. Now, of course, once you give that unit even just 2 or 3 machine guns, Maxim guns or whatever, it's sort of silly to do. Okay, so rifles are become no longer the primary infantry weapon to cause casualties at any sort of range. I say that way because once you're storming the trench or something, it's bayonets and bullets, and I know I did watch with a friend, and the movies always have been All's Quiet on the Western Front. I know of at least 3 versions of it. One that was done, I think, very early 80s or 70s, which is much closer to the original. I would say the original is the best still. The modern one is even more gruesome. It's always designed as an anti-war movie, but the modern one is overly gruesome. I think it's hyping it up. Once you're going over the top and you're getting in amongst the enemy, of course the rifle and its bayonet is very much still a deadly and useful weapon, but it is no longer. Certainly if you're looking at, and you can again read Infantry Attacks by Rommel, those riflemen as snipers and amongst, the mountains, and then I don't even mean snipers as specifically trained, but aimed fire at 1,000+ meters across, because often you can maybe, they're 3,000 meters out there. You can see the enemy marching up a side of the hill, or mountain or whatever, in column up a trail. You can see them, but none of your guns can, unless you have artillery, none of your guns can shoot them. So you often see the enemy moving around, and you can't effectively engage them. But once you sort of kind of could, again, 1,500 meters or something or less, that slow fire, aimed slow fire at enemy that are sort of exposed, going up an enemy trail, whether they're coming towards you or going away from you, different mountain slopes. Yeah, it has, it's an effective, because again, the enemy can't necessarily take cover because open mountain terrain, and if they stall and take cover in amongst the rocks, but you pinned them somewhere until darkness. So the rifle and a machine gun fire at that range might also be going on, but would be overkill because they're sort of spread out along, you think of ant trail going up the side of a mountain kind of thing. So the rifles are still important, don't get me wrong, but they're not the critical deciding factor. It becomes the machine gun for open type terrain, long range. The tactics at the beginning a Napoleonic officer could understand, and once he gets quickly updated on, weapons ranges, and you don't march within 100 meters and open fire with your muskets. You engage much further out. Once he gets some of that stuff done, a Napoleonic officer can very much function in the early days. I'm not talking early years. I'm talking early days of World War I, including a cavalry officer that if you catch one of these units in line, in whether a marching column or a line formation, and hit them on their flank coming in, that horses move very fast over short distances, relatively short distances. They move very fast, and coming in with sabers would still be an effective tactic. But if the enemy has any time to notice you, turn and face you, their rifle fire would be devastating coming straight into it. You don't even need to form a square. You just sort of need to, think as a man, turn low, as a man that has been on the receiving end of RPK fire about 800 meters away, bullets that have to whom it may concern, shit sucks, made the day a lot longer. Absolutely turn low. And so, yes. And so that's, so you're going, again, you're going from a unit, whether it's a company, a battalion, or whatever, that's effectively doing a volley fire to a volley fire of a machine gun. Now, machine guns can also be used, in whether submachine guns or full-size machine guns, as small beaten zones, as assault type, tools to assault a position. They have a lot of other smaller uses, but you still have tripods or even bipods set up that are, effectively doing volley fire on other enemy, either as an individual or because of small unit tactics, but still it's a thing, or against larger formations. To the end with its, trench warfare, that it's a Napoleonic officer basically would be entirely out of its depth. So, you have that kind of warfare going on, and you still, in the East, because of the scale, you don't have the high levels of entrenchment, because you can even see here, we've got concentrations here, we've got concentrations down here. Nobody's holding the line here. Where over here, partially, and it's two reasons, quite honestly here. One, it's a relatively, compared to out in Russia, shorter front line, and two, the higher population densities. And again, here, the relatively short lines, some of these mountains should be, I'm not sure, but should be impassable for these size of armies. I don't know well enough. Obviously here we have roads and railways, and it's not so much can you push a company or a battalion through and around some of these mountains. It's can you push a corps and then supply the corps with food and ammunition and everything else through these mountains? I don't know. That's made, so the push that the Italians did up in here, I don't know if that would have been possible over the terrain without capturing the towns and the railways and what along the path first. So, so we're pushing up here, and they're holding there. Now, for me in this game, as you can see, where I really want to have an offensive, I have my artillery. So here we got these guys, and we can see here, not looking good odds at attacking, except for this unit that isn't entrenched. That is too far away for that gun. This gun has 4 shells, or 4 barrages capable. So we're going to start here. I'm going to fall back. These guys are going to come up and take them on and shatter the unit. Now here, I do want to push. So with 4 barrages capable. Oh, I remember, it's been a long time since I've seen some of the documentary, I mean, as in like 30 years, on the World War I and whatnot. If I remember correctly, and I forget whether it was the Austrians, no, I think it was the Russians, but down around here, some major offensive was set up to go, and I think it was the Russians that were getting ready for a major offensive. They had something less than 10 rounds per artillery piece. So, you can talk about how many artillery pieces you have, but if you only have 4 rounds for an artillery piece, 4 guns or 1 gun, there's some advantage to having more guns, but not a big one. If you don't, meaning if you could have all those artillery pieces for the, 1 gun instead of for 4. So we are definitely looking at okay, so now they've faced, and so from negative, for us to good rates of return. So we're going to do that, and we're going to shift this unit here to the front here. Look there and still look here. Okay, so this is going to be 4, possibly losing 1. And he probably has too many units in the back, so he's not going to retreat, but he's going to get shattered. I'm not going to move up here because I'm keeping a steady sort of line. Hey, Eric! Okay, so now where we're not keeping a steady line, and they did sort of mess with our horsies. Come up here. We're going to be passive aggressive. Sort of what I call it here, because we're coming up here, and these guys are going to retreat back where there's going to be good supply. These guys are going to come up here where they can entrench. Make sure these guys are entrenched. Yes. So our Austrian line is entrenched right here. Russians are up there, of course. Now, the question will be, the question is, should we attack? No, because we've come up and it's not favorable. What we'll do here is come up and entrench, invite them to attack us, of course. We don't want to lose that town. We do want to support up there, so we will move like that, and you can come up here. So part of what we're doing here is definitely, invading Russia and killing units. But part of what this whole push was, is because the Turks were doing really badly down here, was to try to convince the Russian AI that pushing against the Turks was not as important as defending against a German-Austrian push. So this was, where prior to that, I was just holding the line and trying to attrit, set up favorable attacks for myself and attrit the Russians. And so it gave Russia the confidence to decide that it wanted to push against the Turks. But not now so much. Okay, now mentioning the Turks out here. I am sort of kind of trying to, and they're very much a disfavorite any attacks. So we are going more passive here in defending. So we are looking at, okay, how many artillery? We got three barrages saved up here and 3 here. Well, we have a few more units up here. Let's try this one. Okay. Their entrenchment level has been worn down, but not enough to really, with the forces available, really push in and take ground. Here we will reinforce as much as we can, which is just 1. Here, that's there. Here. So, yeah, pull the attack. So let's just reinforce. Okay, not enough supply coming through here. Send in more reinforcements. Down here they pushed a little bit against that line, but we're holding. Yeah, we need, look at supply, hit S. So you're down at 4. Let's move you up here. Hopefully we'll get you reinforced soon and get you back on the front. This is just a detachment. This isn't a full unit. So I think I want to move them. I think maybe down here would have been better against these camel riders. Okay, so that's taking a big strike with our naval mines. We have naval bombers. I want to come out here and I want to light cruiser. Do I have a destroyer here somewhere? What I want to do. You're going to play sort of cat and mouse with submarines. I move them on to the enemy's lines, do some damage before they can start sending out a lot of forces to come and patrol, move off, then come back out again. Trying to not necessarily do the maximum by any means damage to the enemy. I'm just trying to maximize my forces by not losing submarines, so I'm not paying for more submarines, and I'm just costing the enemy MPP. Is sort of the plan, if you will. Okay. Yeah. That is a detachment. Okay, we want to reinforce you before we remove you. You attack there, but I think that was good. I don't think they're going to have huge numbers of forces to bring against me. And we still have some artillery shells for defensive operations. So I think we're sort of kind of good there. Pushing out here a little bit more. Yeah, artillery is definitely the king here. You get artillery to an area of the front, you can really start doing damage. Okay, now This is a core. All the way up to here if we move it. You can see minus 60% morale is if we do this. So you're not going to, and morale matters a lot. No, I don't think we need, because you're not doing so well. We'll rip along the road there. Now, yeah, I guess it's going to go. I'll focus somewhere else. Yeah, I think that's front, because the artillery had been here holding along here, and we moved it up for the Riga push. We'll move the Bulgarian artillery here. Basically, it's German-made artillery with Bulgarian. I don't think they're going to come in, but I'm just getting ready for the possibility. Here, we'll push into. We'll push into Romania if they come into the war from the south. We've done sort of that. Now, what we haven't been doing is patrolling ourselves along the supply lines to here. Oh, there we go. Enemy contact. Somehow a British submarine got into here. All right, well. Certainly favorable. We need more destroyers, and we're not very good at anti-submarine warfare. Yeah. Let's max you out for next turn. Okay. So that's what we brought you back here to do. Get you for that. Okay. Before I start playing with this, I am going to say, because I get frustrated with some of this naval warfare stuff here. Because if I'm not very careful, I'll run into my own mines, run into enemy mines. Okay, so you still need to be upgraded to advanced subs. So yes, I think you have been upgraded. Oh, no, you have not. Okay, we upgraded everybody you can to advanced subs. You have been upgraded to advanced subs. You have not. So you were going to here. You were weaker, so sort of. You can see the little one there. That means they're upgraded, and this doesn't have the one. So it's upgraded. Get through that. Those are mostly coming home, one heading back out. We've repaired our lines somewhat there. Yeah. think now that we got this close, we're going to get some of these German units, these two at least, maybe him. This is just a detachment, so that's no good on the front lines, but it is sort of good for occupation duties. Like a detachment holding rear. Yeah, I think we're going to be pushing up here more. Ukraine. Okay, so let's come back here. Germany. Oh, we got a cheap two destroyed corps, so we're going to put one of them. That's all we can build. Well, let's build an airship. Is it possible to force Russia into the revolution? I do believe there are events that you can do that, Beam Slam. I'm just not sure if they are, we're already in August of 1917, if they're timed or conditioned, like on national morale or holding certain hexes. So I'm not absolutely sure what the conditions are. I'm not going to build anything for you guys. We're just going to use those extra points to be able to keep reinforcing units on the front lines. Okay. We're holding some critical reinforcements. Yes, I'm wondering if we will see it. There's definitely been meetings with the socialists and whatnot going on. Okay, German scientists report progress in armored warfare to 100%. So now we have level 2 armored warfare. Maybe that'll let us buy tanks. Germany develops production technology to level 3. Austria-Hungary, gas shell production, which means more artillery shells per turn, to level 2. And we're letting it think. Uh-oh. Should have backed him off. And I should have backed him off too. But we'll see. We maybe if these units get stuck here, we'll move up the German High Seas Fleet and crush some Russian naval units. That was a mistake by my forces. I mean, yeah, should have backed you off. And no, as you can tell, I don't play this naval part of the game very well. Yeah, I hear you, Beam Slam. There's always so many games to play. But I really want to stress the scenarios of like the Schlieffen Plan and the Big Push and the Ludendorff Offensive, those sort of daily or every other day kind of scenarios are, in my opinion, the best and are great games. Just in general, are most worthy to play. So if you just want to play one of those with Strategic Command World War I would highly recommend it. And they're a bit more contained, both in scope of the battle as well as, time to play it. How many days, weeks you're going to invest in a particular game. the one big fall down with the AI of this game. It's very good for if you can set up a rinse and repeat. For sim. As we know, these AIs don't really learn. They may have, there's no learning ability with them. They may very well have a, attack if odds are favorable or whatever. I got to reinforce him as well. Hey, Admiral Teague. Good to see you, my friend. Hail, hail. There is some sort of judgment going on. So, but it doesn't learn lessons. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. Or sticker, I guess. Yes, sticker. Thank you so much for the sticker. Thank you. I have faced significant health challenges. I am doing much, much better now. So, yeah, it kept me from this. So I'm back. I am very happy to be back. I have faced significant health shit. Yeah, go there. Everybody, Admiral Teague is a modern-day Don Quixote. He tilts at windmills. He is trying to save Star Trek. So if you want to check out his YouTube channel, it's an important fight. I don't watch it enough just because I don't watch enough live streaming as it deserves. But yeah, it's definitely a very good channel to check out. So if you're interested in pop culture, if you're interested in Star Trek, that kind of stuff, check out his YouTube channel. Yeah, Beam Slam, it's definitely coming. AI is scary. The question is compute. How much compute does it take to do even a basic learning at like this kind of game? With just this limited stuff. And it is limited as opposed to something much more detailed. Okay, let's see. We're still. Conscription leads to industrial unrest in the Midlands for England. Foreign minister reports diplomatic success. The U.S. getting into the Entente. We've not been provoking the U.S. this game. Trying to just keep them out. Oh, cool. Well, those I may check out if they're a bit shorter. So I do watch a fair amount of Frankfurt Light Cruiser Sunk. Yes, I did that badly. All right. And they pushed us back. Okay, I'm not going to deploy any forces. I'm just going to save here at the beginning of this turn. Because, to me, live streams are good. They're fun. But I sort of want to watch them mostly live, and it just different times of day before I forget, because I often do forget. we want to come over here before the unit is destroyed, reinforce and reinforce. There we go. Just to make sure those two air units are fully reinforced, which means they won't operate for us this turn. Now, here, they pushed us out of here finally, this town, this city here. So now the unit retreated, which is better than being completely lost. So we will fall back here. We are going to count. We're going to let's even though this is a more important town than this hex, I think this is more likely to be pushed. So we'll move the core up here and leave the detachment here. So they're trying to reinforce because I don't think we have much supply. We're going to fall all the way back to here, move you to there to protect that. So we will repair that. Partially, the units out here are more valuable than standard is because I think we can only deploy to here and then walk the units forward. So they're not near the front. Now the Russians AI here, for some reason, moved 3 corps to near the front line, and there's just not enough units that need to support that. So I don't understand that. Now, like I say, rinse and repeat. What I can do here is they came down with 1 or more units. They hit some mines there. So I have these destroyers. It's at this strength. They can come out. Oh, no, yeah, these are, destroyers. They're going to come out here. They're going to come out here and they're going to lay some mines. And we're going to lay mines there and we're going to go back in. And in a turn or two, they'll come straight through here again and lose ships. And they just won't do anything different because they don't see the mines. So they don't know that they're there, but they constantly get hit by them. So it's they don't, 4 to 15 minutes. I'll watch those. Admiralty, I'll check some of them out if they're on a topic that I like. If you're covering some of this new Trek shit, I will unfortunately not. I have not watched any of this new Trek. Not a single episode. I have not polluted myself with any of that crap. So, but Admiral Teague also covers things like the old series Enterprise, which I love, and other in the original series. So, it's not just new Trek that he covers, but definitely covers Trek heavily. So that is good reasons to check out his channel if you're into that. Okay, so now we can look here. We are pushing into Ukraine. No. Get too fast. There we go. Okay, so if we continue to push down here, as we can see, we might get a bit more supplies by holding here than what's shown, but we're going to constantly get, we're going to starve out the forces. So what we need to do is we need to take this rail line to really push, into Crimea. Ukraine towards Crimea. So. Yeah, I knew that would be premature to try to attack that. So what we're going to do is we're come up here and entrench. Here. Put entrench. But that's just... I want to hurt their artillery badly, and I can retreat. Good. And so now, can he... Okay, now he has... He were to come up here, he could not entrench. But back here. So now the question is, are they going to move up forces to attack him in his unentrenched position? I don't think they have enough around this area to do so. So... we'll come up here and create a holding corner there, shoulder, whatever. Got 2 tonight, 2 Battle of Byzanti Prime in 1 week, and we're deep into season 3. Good. Okay. And this is like another thing is they either deploy or strategically redeploy a unit here right to the front that, yeah, take some losses, but destroy a whole unit. That it just does not, the AI just does not learn from. Okay, so we have now pushed out of Riga. And the Russians are pushing in multiple places. We have a fort here. That'll be somewhat difficult to take. It is a strategic. Got these Bulgarian artillery pieces here. So you can see here, and we have 8 shells. So what we're going to do is you start out with 4 of them, 4 barrages. Now, we are much better odds. We'll do 1 more. Okay, well, we didn't quite take him out as I was hoping, but definitely got shattered. Now, you cannot, in this game, both do an attack and then, even if you have the action points, build an entrenchment. You just figure it takes too much time to do both of that. So we're going to move you up to here and entrench right along. Actually, move the entrenchment around, capture the entrenchments. Horses are going to come up here and entrench. Horses and trenches, yes. We're going to move the artillery right up here that will be able to defend / attack here to push next turn. So we are pushing along here, which has got to worry them. Don't know how much these AIs worry, but they do have definitely take into account positions being held, etc. Unentrenched horses. And they're gone. Now these guys are way out here on their own. I'm going to think about whether I want to move them back or not, because the opposition is just not prepared here. We're going to move up and entrench. HQ to be slightly closer to the front. You can see some of the units that he is supporting. Some there, but they will shift as needed. Okay, so this should start to scare the Russians in that they're where to deploy their troops. We're pushing down here, we're pushing up there. There's a lot of forces just sitting here, which is good for us, because if we can entrap them, that would be excellent. Down here, supply just is not good. Yeah, I agree. There, instead of being flanked. I'm I'm going to take the time to move you up there. Supply should be much better up there. Get you strong before sending you back to the front. Okay, so our front line has stabilized. So they've come in and moved into positions. We can move the units to see that there are some areas that are not entrenched. They moved up forces, but were unable to entrench them. So that means they are vulnerable. We need to be somewhat smart about this and which ones we're going to attack. We will first come over with our recon bomber. We can upgrade. We're going to upgrade ground attack. We're going to upgrade ground attack. We're going to then not do that to level 2. So that way, when I do come out and attack, they will do so much better. Okay, so we have 8 shells. So let's these guys are going to wipe that unit out entirely. We're going to move forward and reinforce these guys. These guys are going to replace those at the front, so we have a stronger unit at the front. Now here we have 6 shells. These are pretty weak, but we're going to all the way back there and move these guys up. Take out that unit. So now, well, the question is this: what? Because we have, they're entrenched. They're, if there's anybody in there, I guess the tanks they can't entrench. Okay, so 8 shells. This unit up to the front here and take them out. All right, so these guys, not favorable. We could try bombarding them heavily. We will, let's just fire into there with them, with our railway guns. Now, back along here. Offensives are not good ideas. Where we need to get some of our forces moved out from over here up to there. Yeah, strong. So we will. And come up and entrench. The roadway. The detachment, so that's not very strong in the, well, very strong period, but you are going to be reinforced. I don't want you to be taken out. Now you walk with them and punish this French Marine unit. Very good. Now, over here, you need reinforcements. Our recon bombers will go up probably with just a second. Let's see what, okay. What do we have? We have 4, so that's good. So we'll see, we may take heavy losses without the escorts. Somewhat losses. Okay, they hit that pretty hard. You can retreat to there. Okay, they retired. We're going to swap you out with a fresh unit. Yeah, I'm not going to make the enemy's mistake and occupy that with forces that aren't going to be strong and dug in and be able to hit from many sides. So better to keep pushing them back than taking losses ourselves. So it's good. That is all right. Right back here. You guys are going to follow a known safe path. Retreat 1. This is good save, but we're risking it if you don't manage that carefully. You just sort of like go whip, it'll go through your own minefield, so it does not think even the slightest. Okay, so they're heading out. These guys are coming back in. They've been upgraded. Well, actually, we'll come and sit on the supply lines to Russia and see if we can disrupt some. Oh, we bumped into somebody. Damn. Try to hide out in the ocean as much as we can. Get control back here. Let's see. So we have replacement units or units coming in. Another corps, guards corps, that just the name doesn't mean anything. Here, we'll put that there. Torpedo boats for Austria-Hungary. There. And another detachment for being pushed back here. Okay, now let's see. For Turkey, we've got 400 points. MPP. I think another corps. Hungary, plenty of corps, just built out everything we can, basically. Seaplane carrier. One. Okay, Germany still has points. Well, before we do that, let's, I think we're pretty good at getting units that we can. Reinforced up. Critical. Okay. So we've lost. And so it's cheaper here. I keep forgetting. Gotta hit that. I hate that. It's cheaper here to bring in a unit that's destroyed is because this game doesn't differentiate between one of these units at the front line being destroyed and a unit, say, being surrounded by the enemy and destroyed. Unit that's surrounded by the enemy and destroyed, as in a pocket, of course, you're losing everything. But when you're at the front lines, units that shatter, are destroyed as an effective unit, there's probably still 60% of the men are recovered, officers, NCOs, regular guys. Probably a lot of the equipment's recovered, their rifles, artillery, whatnot. But as a fighting force, that unit is gone, as an effective core. So that what you need to do is take time, get it back behind your lines, and repair it. So it takes time. So it's cheaper to bring a unit back. And they don't, like I say, don't differentiate. Oh, tank corps. So maybe it's level 2 that we needed, or whether it was on the clock. I don't know for Germany. But we can get a tank corps. Just one, but we got a tank corps now. That is good. And yes, they're all built out. All right. Okay. So let's quickly look at research here, particularly for Austria-Hungary, because they have lots and lots of extra MPP. Maybe they need to do that. Get to level 2 on both of these before can they even build? So maybe I'm going down. Yep, no, they can build a tank corps. Not available now, but they can build one. So let's there. Those are get useful larger area of operations. And since we have so much, we'll actually increase production technology. Okay. There we go. But let's give the Entente their turn. Thanks. Now find this Rommel. I think he is somewhere in the Alps. Yeah, 1917, I think he was in the Alps. Because, he's first in a Bavarian, I forget, infantry unit that is fighting, in Flanders. Austria-Hungary develops fighter development level 1. Scientists report progress for infantry warfare for Austria-Hungary. And then he gets transferred after being wounded and whatnot to a mountain division or mountain unit. And is sent out to Romania and fights out there in Romania for a while. And then gets sent to the Italian front. Oh, I forgot. Oh, damn. So this is one of the things is, and now do I go back and do the end of turn save or something, which I did not do. I forgot to do this whole thing. And this is what sort of aggravates me about this game is I forget. And how, well, whatever, if I lose this, well, they actually made it to a port. But I forget things like that. And that's why often I've gone back to saves, not because I'm like dissatisfied with the die roll, but forget things like that. I don't know how good Rommel would have been with tanks in 1917. Well, these turns aren't that long, 20 minutes, I don't think. I bumped into these guys. And see that, they were surprised by that contact. because they were going up to the other guy, and bumped into him. Yeah. I mean, they were finding out in World War I, at least the Entente was finding out, it was better not to do heavy artillery bombardment if you were going to do a tank attack, primarily because the terrain was so chewed up from the heavy bombardment. And if you could move the tank forces up to the front without the enemy, spotting the movement of the unit, then you'd be hitting on troops that were at least, they were prepared for an attack, but not expecting it, because they were expecting, a day or two of artillery, for a big attack, not a trench raid, wire cutting, raid, or wire deployment along the front, out in the front or whatever, a big push. They were expecting a few days of artillery beforehand. Otherwise, it was just going to be a localized fight, which is deadly, but I'm not trying to minimize that. They weren't expecting like a big push. Well, if you can hit them with the tanks, you can really go deep. Oh, it is such a crapshoot. The greatest U.S. tank commander of World War II was taken out by shrapnel lying on top of the tank, guiding it. Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, the Americans they were starting to build, but I don't think any of the American built what we call the FT-17, I forget the American designation of it, but the Renault designed little French two-man tank that really becomes the form factor for tanks going forward, because it was the right form factor. But it was a little two-man tank. The French did build a command tank variant of it. It had no guns on it. It had an armored box sort of where the turret was, that they could cram in a second guy. And they had a radio in it that was both a sending and receiving unit. Uh-oh. Well, they were going to port with their one-strength ship, and it got sunk, I think. I'm guessing it bumped into our unit there, as opposed to looking for it. And I think it was just communicating with basically Morse code. It did have some pistol firing ports, so the guys wearing their pistols could shoot out of it with their pistols. But the command tank had no other ways of communicating with the tanks it was commanding, other than try to physically get their attention. I don't know if they use semaphore flags. These are the French, because that was definitely a World War II thing. The tank units were trained, including in the Americans, to have somebody in their tank look for the look at the command tank and see what it's telling us to do. Either it could be being given to you. Oh shit! They took out my whole submarine. Wow. Guide on me. In essence, so if the command tank of the unit turns to the north, we all sort of turn to the north too, that kind of thing. But what they were also doing was, pop out. The commander would do semaphore flags, type of thing, wave flags around, and then try to, hopefully your friendly tanks have spotted you. And that was still being used into World War II. The Soviets, particularly, often their platoon commander or even company commander tanks early in the war only had receiving units, meaning they couldn't talk back, and none of or depending on what units, because it varied, but some of the units, the actual tanks themselves had no radios at all, so they were entirely dependent upon paying attention to their leader tank. So somebody had to pay attention to it. So, but a command tank could be, shall we say, we lost 2 subs, they lost a cruiser. Yep, they pulled out of town. Okay, we're going to do it. So, very simplistic stuff. All the British, the rhomboid shape, the tank core, this shape here, that was good for crossing trenches, and because it's very high at the front, but it's very limited to sort of World War I and not useful really much. I mean, they get used in the Russian Civil War and other, other stuff, but it's not really good. The FT-17, I'll say it, it's still useful in World War II. Now, I wouldn't put it on a frontline unit for anybody, and France was using about 800 to 1,000 of them actually on the frontline units. That was not good. But, imagine this. It's 1944. You're a German unit that is stationed in, well, let's get rid of these units, like in Boulogne here, or Le Havre, or somewhere, back a ways from the front, and you're a German garrison unit. A pair, let's say, let's even go 2 with machine guns and 2 with the 37 millimeters. They didn't have both; they had either one. Gun on them, get delivered to you, and some sort of German instruction manual gets delivered to you. And you're going, World War I craptastic tanks? What are you talking about? Well, yeah, if the Americans are, with some of their, their Hobart's funnies, the British, which is, creating like amphibious tanks. Yeah, if you're rolling up with amphibious Shermans, or you've landed some LSTs and they're coming off and Shermans are coming off, yeah, they're not that good. But, oh, hey, wait, there's a partisan attack somewhere, or, oh, we found a partisan headquarters somewhere. And so this, of course, could be good down deep into France or some other place. We want to, some farm building. Well, instead of just coming up with a bunch of, reservists, old dudes, whatever, that are garrison troops going to root out the partisans, well, you bring up a tank with its machine gun, and it's fire support. Or, like I say, if you're at Le Havre or something, and there's a British commando raid, from the sea, well, instead of just your guys out there with machine guns and rifles sparring with the commandos, you bring up a tank. Yeah, it's a World War I tank, but it's still useful firepower. It's not that I would say you would want to continue to produce any of these, but any of them you had laying around in stock in any of these nations, I would put, and the Italians built a bunch of them. I don't know what happened to them. I think they were all destroyed or whatever. And theirs were fast, unlike the other, and the Americans. Yeah, so if you're looking at that kind of thing, they'd be useful. They're still useful. The FT-17 is still useful firepower into World War II. So yeah, but okay, yeah. So I want to thank Admiral Teague, Beam Slam, Arno, Eric, you're scrolling up, Kronos, Jamnuska, if you're still here. Repeat 422, Arton Smith, Exergen. I know you went away, but maybe you came back. Not sure. You said maybe. And I know I said Arno, but Arno again. Thank you, and Lum. Thank you all for coming and hanging out with me. Expect mostly coming back with the Saturday streams. The sickness interrupted my moving, so I still have to fucking shut down my apartment in California, which is costing me money, and I just got to get all the way here, and my secret base is into Arizona and whatnot. So yeah, I'm feeling well, feeling up to streaming. Just not sure whether, if I've got to move something from California, I got something important to do on a Saturday, I'm going to go do it. Just until I'm a little more settled. So yeah, but expect to start seeing me more and more. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. I do love hanging out with you.